It's Speaking with Gravity, and I am Curvin.
I'm D.
And we're a mental health podcast focusing on bringing awareness to the community locally, nationally, and worldwide. On here, we have topics covering a little bit of everything. We talk about how everything affects everything, especially your mental health. And today, we have a guest. And this month of March is Women's History Month, and we wanted to be intentional about who we had on here as a guest. Unfortunately, our third co-host wasn't able to be with us, so we got somebody in her place who came in last season and wowed us with her knowledge. And her name is Carrie Saxon, but I'm gonna let her further introduce herself. Take it away, Miss Carrie.
Thank you, sir. My name is Carrie Saxon. I'm an insurance agent, and my establishment is in Columbia, South Carolina. I service the whole state of South Carolina, and I'm happy to be here.
And today we're going to talk about us individually, as a community, and we're going to open it up as we normally do with Twitter discussions. And the Twitter discussion that we came up with today was written as follows: Black excellence is as much about us proving our worth as it is about being what society deems successful. It's also rooted in black elitism. Though people don't want to acknowledge, part of what makes them feel successful is to not be considered one of those other black folks over there. That one kind of hit me some type of way when I read that one. And truth be told, I would probably say in the beginning, I'm in college. Yeah, I'm not this way. I'm not that way. I'm in college. I'm bettering myself. I think once I got out of school and got into like the workforce, that kind of subsided, because you figure out it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you're educated. Really don't matter how much money you got, because they don't see the dollar signs on your forehead. They don't see like how much you worth. So as Kanye West said, you still a person in a coupe. No matter what, they're gonna see what they see inside that car. So that's how I felt about it. Did y'all have any thoughts as I read that to y'all?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like what you were saying. I know just my personal experience, you kind of, when you're in school, you kind of have to conform to whatever gets you through the door, right? Mm-hmm. Gets you the diploma in your hand. And when you get out here and realize there's people of all walks of life, and everything that you perceive is not necessarily telling the whole truth, You could be in a Beamer and not be able to afford the Beamer. I mean, it just comes down to being true to yourself, so you don't set yourself up for failure. But a lot of times we just do whatever we think is perceived as successful, and that's dangerous. Yeah. That's real dangerous.
You have anything, D?
Man, I was just looking over the power in that last sentence, though. Though people won't acknowledge, part of what makes them feel successful is to not be considered one of those other black folks over there.
That's a powerful statement.
That is a powerful statement, and really thinking about, for a long time, that was my mindset. Like, I'm not them. You know what I'm saying? I don't live in the ghetto, I guess that's what some people would say. But realizing that ghetto-ness, and it is, some things is more of a mindset than an actual physical location. And it really realizing how powerful the mind is. And in terms of equality, something that we hear oftentimes, people say that's what they're fighting for. But how often we really conform to not being equal amongst our own. The very things that we try to fight against are the very things
that we're doing.
Self-segregation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, and I guess, and seeing it written in that complexity, I think that's what I tried to say in one of our previous episodes of, we really have to take off this idea of separating ourselves by the very same classism, sexisms, all these things, because we're just creating further division amongst the divided,
yeah.
right? You know what I'm saying? We're finding ways to make our numbers even smaller. So shout out to whoever wrote
I don't know who wrote that, but I don't even know
came
where I
up
got
with
that
that
from.
Twitter discussion.
I gotta do a better
Real
job
life.
of writing down who said what. But I gotta do a way better job.
You end up being subpoenaed.
Yeah. All right, so our QD of the hour, quotable data, is 20 years ago there was one recognized billionaire who is Bob Johnson. Today, according to Wikipedia, there are 12 black billionaires. Up until 2007, there was no more than 2 at a time. And then after 2000, I think it was 2008, that's when you start getting like 4 or 5, and now we're up to 12. So that goes into our introduction.
Depression and anxiety can be significantly influenced by our self-critical voice and subsequent behaviors. Yes, there was a Jim Crow era. Yes, there was slavery. But contrary to unpopular opinion, we have progressed and we have excelled as a people. Today we will discuss if old ideology is creating cognitive dissonance and a lack of real effort to continue to progress.
And that QD of the hour really kind of flowed because, we could talk about, we have talked about this, even, privately, of course, but also on the podcast, how, it's difficult being African American, trying to open up your own business. It is difficult. But the fact of the matter is, it's also possible. Because you go from 1 to having 12. And if you look at the 12, I think 5 of them are like 4 or 5 of them has to do with like entertainment. I think it's all entertainment, like maybe 1 sports person. So, but outside of that, everybody else have done a business. So it's feasible to make it to that billionaire status, and in a few years it's going to be trillionaires. We're going to have trillionaires out here. But it's feasible to do that. Are we our own worst enemy as for why we only still have 13? We did go from 1 to 12, but are we our own worst enemy for why we only have so many? As far as our attitude is concerned about money, family, religion, is that altering our focus? And when I say us, when I say our and us, I'm talking about the African American community, but we can even put it in a personal standpoint. Like, is my own individual family like that? Or am I like that as a person? And I would venture to say, to some degree, my attitude hasn't been the best up until somebody called me on it. Somebody called me on it a few years ago, and I was complaining about something, and the statement was as simple as this: so what you gonna do about it? And I had to look at myself like, dang, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna cry about it? Am I gonna whine about it? Or am I just gonna take this path and try to make a difference? What are y'all thoughts on that?
I'm gonna tell you what my grandma said. If you gotta ask the question, you already know the answer. I mean, if we already are asking this question, we know that it's a part of the problem. I mean, it might not be all of a problem, but it's the majority of it. It's just gonna be real. I mean, if I know that I want to go somewhere and feel comfortable in the ocean because I'm deathly afraid of water, I got to learn how to swim to give myself the confidence to go out there. But whose fault is it that I can't swim when it's a million places I could learn to go swimming? I mean, it's not like it's impossible, but yet we'll say, well, I'm scared. You've been scared of something, the whole time. But we'll have a million excuses. Like, we were talking earlier, probably, but the truth of the matter is I used to be running 120 miles a week, working out literally 7 days a week, could knock out, whatever workout it was, go play with the kids at the church, do whatever I had to do, not be winded and barely sweating. And I'm sitting up here now, like, struggling. Everybody's like, oh, you so petite, you so this, you so that. I'm like, well, I'm not healthy. Like, my cholesterol high, my blood pressure high. Like, if I want to, feel the way that I used to feel, I got to put in that same amount of work. And it gets harder the older you get. So really, it's not even the same. I got to put in more work, and I ain't know this. So what good is it going to do if I complain about, man, I would love to get out there with the kids and play and be healthy and know that I can make this another 20 years if I'm not putting in the work. But it's easier to be a victim than a victor. And, I mean, I actually had a heated debate with somebody about this a while back, and I posted my thoughts on Facebook, and I was just like, look, in life, you have choices. Sometimes we see choices as a sacrifice, and instead of, in my mental state, I try to see them as an investment. So I'm going to be sore trying to work out, right? I already know that I'm going to be sore. So when I go into the gym or when I'm doing my individual workouts at home, I know that that's the expectation that I'm going to be sore. But guess what? It fades over time, right? Some people will see that time as a sacrifice and miserable. But every time I see the results, it's an investment in my health and my ability to do the things that I want to do. Being around for the grandkids I hope to have, one day, hopefully my son settle down somewhere and I get to spoil people and then send them back home spoiled like his grandparents do me. But I'm just saying, like, I have to look at it as an investment instead of a sacrifice. Like being a business owner, you said it. It's hard, right? But we sitting up here getting tired because we feel like we're sacrificing the whole time. But if we change that mentality and be like, I'm investing in my future. I'm investing in my child's future. I'm investing in my community's future. By being that example, it gives you that energy, but it's all in your mind. Like I tell people all the time, a lot of your physical health comes from here. If you aren't aligned here, I mean, think about it. Depression, you can gain weight or lose weight rapidly, right? It's all here. How you approach all of that. So when you ask that question, are we our own worst enemy? You can kill yourself. You can literally kill yourself by not taking care of yourself and having your mindset in the right place.
I like how you said you note the results, because a lot of times we start something, but to keep it going, you got to really take in what happens after you started it. Going to the whole business thing and trying to be progressive. It's one thing to get out there, and then you start seeing, the money ain't coming in like I thought it was going to come in.
Yeah.
Or having to wait longer for this to go through than I wanted to wait. But along the way, you can get that encouragement, that vote of confidence from someone. Or in my case, you have individuals or clients come back and say, hey, you really helped me. I feel like I wouldn't have been able to help them unless I was in this type of format, which is my own thing, as opposed to being a part of something where I'm constricted by their policy or their procedures and maybe some rules and regulations. So just to be able to go back and just look at the results. Sometimes you just got to jump out there, make the leap of faith. You might just have to do something different. But once you do it, how did it make you feel? What progress did you see as a result of that?
Always be able to inspect what you expect.
Oh.
That's what I was taught. When you go out there to do
Who
something.
giving you all these sayings?
Hey, look, I stay around people way older, way wiser, way smarter than me because that's what it takes. And that's a problem that we have too.
I like that.
You got to inspect your circle.
Yeah.
Like if you expect to be, I asked the person, would you rather have a person take advice from a person that had $1 million or created $1 million? And a lot of people be like, well, it doesn't really matter. I was like, no, it does. I said, because if you can go from the bottom and create $1 million, that means that person knows how to show you how to make $1 million. There's a difference between a person having $1 million and you don't know where that $1 million came from. It could have been just family money. Now, I'm not knocking. I think both of them should be your friend, just in case. But the thing is, I try to be around people coming up that, and even now, that have the skills to help me get out of the hole I created. Like, if you steady digging holes, I need somebody that can help me fill them so we don't have those pitfalls again. And I think sometimes we go for popularity rather than progress, and that stunts a lot of us. We want to be around the people that look like they got it all together and everything, and not inspecting what we expect to make sure they have the skill sets to help us get to where we need to go. I need to be able to grow. I need to be around somebody that's going to be like, Curvin, you're going to be like, hey, Carrie, you really out of pocket, and this is why, and I need you to come correct. I've had people, and as a matter of fact, I had somebody snap me up last week. I mean, hey, it is what it is, but it makes me a better person when you have somebody that you can rely on and sharpen you. And that was the biggest thing, was inspect what you expect out of yourself and out of others. And if something's not aligning right, you got to ask yourself why, when, how, whatever those questions are, to fix where the gaps are. And if you're not willing to fix where the gaps are, it's totally you.
How do you ask yourself that? How do you ask yourself, man, am I right? Am I wrong? Because we can get caught up as a self-critical voice. We can get caught up if we just in our head. We can get caught up. Period. Mm-hmm. Did I? Especially when we're talking about microaggressions. A person say this. Did they say what I thought they said? Did they mean it in the way that I think that? So how do we check ourselves? I do like what you said about your circle. That's obviously one way. You have a good circle around you. Mm-hmm. But your circle don't always know what's in your head. So how you check yourself?
I think it comes down to communication. I mean, here's the thing. We've met a few times, right? And mm-hmm. we know, my style, and I'm really just transparent. But at the same time, you don't know me that well because mm-hmm. you haven't been around me as long as other people. And I think you have to be conscious of how somebody met you. You have to be conscious of that. Like, there are things that, I wouldn't joke with you about because we don't go back that far. Like, you might expect something like that to come out of my mouth at this point, but it would still take you aback the first time because you're like, whoa, you real comfortable with yourself. And I'm like, yeah, I am. But the thing is, I know my best friends, like, that have been ride or dies for a long time. They know, really, but they know not to take me too serious. But if it was somebody off the street, I could say something because I'm very quick with it and I talk trash. So if I say that to the wrong person, I have to be like, oh, wait, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it that way. I joke a lot. Mm-hmm. So what I do in my office, like, I'm very casual. And you could talk to any of my customers. Like, they could ask me some random stuff. And I'm like, well, this is what I think. But I tell them all the time, hey, I joke a lot. So if you don't like an agent that jokes a lot or that, just let me know. Because I said I'm not trying to be offensive, but that's just how I am. You have to realize what I might consider a strength could also be a negative to people that are a little more serious than me or just have a dry sense of humor. I just have to be okay and know that might be what I feel is a strength is a weakness as well. You have to know yourself, and you have to know in which relationships you can engage on that level. And I think that's just self-awareness. Am I overly critical when it comes to that? Not as much as I used to be because now I've matured and kind of know. And I think that just comes with experience. I think you're going to have some places where when it's new territory, it's kind of like when you're a little kid riding a bike. Like, you get that first mile out the way, I got this, but then you come to an intersection, you forget how to use the brakes, like,
or you get nervous, you know exactly what to do, but you're nervous.
You're nervous, and that's okay. I think sometimes we got to be okay. I think the biggest part of being self-critical is not the actual criticism itself, criticizing yourself and, getting your thoughts together and trying to articulate them within your own head, that's fine. It's when you get stuck there. Mm-hmm. Like, it's okay to recognize I did this wrong, but let it go and realize you learn from the lesson and move on. We get stuck on, we should have never made a mistake. No, you're living, you're going to make mistakes. You got to get past that part. And I think that's where the self-criticism kicks us in the butt. We get stuck there. I remember I got my first B. Y'all, I cried so hard. I was miserable for weeks. And then I remember when I graduated from high school, my mom said, you still remember that B? I do. But the thing, she said, did it matter? You graduated with a 4.0. Like, it was 1B out of a sea of A's. But you focused on that 1B for literally, I think that was elementary school. it affected me that much, and it doesn't even matter. Nobody in college asked me about that 1B. Nobody in a job later, but I'm still stuck on that 1B that I had. Like, it hurt my feelings to see that red ink. I mean, but our minds, we focus so much on the trauma instead of the healing. It can conquer you, like, if you let it. And that's where that criticism comes into place. You have to be willing to let stuff go and realize it's really not that big of a deal.
And it's okay to remember that B.
Yeah.
It's okay to have in your mind the trauma, because it's gonna prepare you or prevent you from going into that same path. With that particular B, right? You probably knew what you did wrong.
I did, but I got stuck there.
What did you do wrong?
I got stuck there.
You didn't study?
No, it wasn't even that. Like, I didn't show my work on my math because I did everything mental math. And I was just like, but I know how to do it. Like, it wasn't, but part of the assignment was to show your work.
And so from that point, you start showing it. Well, when we're talking about trauma, processing it and making and becoming aware of it doesn't mean forget it. We don't want you to forget it, because we don't want you to put yourself, or you don't want to be placed back into that particular situation.
You want to learn the lesson.
Yeah, you're learning a lesson. You have what they call that hypervigilance. You have an awareness now regarding whatever trauma that is, so that you don't enter into that same type of danger again. So never should you forget, but in the same token, you got to take those memories and apply them appropriately. Apply them appropriately means, how can I use it to not get there again, or to better myself, or to overcome whatever it is that I'm trying to overcome. And in this case, again, are we our own worst enemy? We can look at the traumas of Jim Crow. We can look at the traumas of slavery. But then you just going to hold on to it and be angry?
And see, that's what I'm talking about. Like, that, I was scared to take another test. Because I was like, I would mull over the instructions to make sure I read them. And I'm like, what is it? Like, if I stay on these instructions, I don't have time to pass the rest of the test if I'm overreading, overthinking. I got stuck in became my own worst enemy.
Yeah.
Focusing on it too much.
Yeah.
Like, I was too focused on it. So that's when I say get over the trauma, and like, you can't let it be a roadblock either.
Right.
And that was what I was doing. Like, I was so deathly afraid to take tests. I had test anxiety after that. My mom was like, "It's 1B. Like, I need you to chill. Like, you still on the honor roll. We won't even see that, but you still have an 8 average, just 1B." And I was just devastated. Like, I was striving for perfection. And, I saw this message, and the guy's right. We can get stuck on stuff so heavy, like pursuing perfection and all of this stuff, but it's like practice makes better, makes you better. It doesn't make you perfect. And sometimes when we talk about our attitudes towards money, family, religion, altering our focus, I think we're so focused on being the idea of perfection and just not being a better version of ourselves, and we've lost being able to teach that.
Well, I think that comes from, and I just had a conversation with someone recently. I know in the era that I was coming up in, we were taught failure wasn't an option.
Yeah.
And I grew up telling myself that I can't fail. But the reality is, failure is always an option. It just can't be your final choice if success is what you're pursuing. And I think because we were taught we can't fail, we always have to be the best, we have to be better than the next, it always put us in competition with other people. And so, you know what I'm saying? When you stop and think about it, you have to be true. And it kind of going back to one of the other episodes, true to what is it that is my own personal values? Like, I know so many people who, say they went off to college and college was a waste for them. Well, then I have to ask the question, did you go to college for you, or did you go to college because it was the expectation for you, right? Because if you did something you didn't really want to do, you're not going to pursue it. If it was never your true desire to be in a classroom, you just went because it was something somebody expected from you, then you failed yourself. But it wasn't college that failed you, right? It was the fact that you put somebody else's desires for you before your own desires. And I think about kind of now we're in this battle of you got to be one or the other. So you got to be full force entrepreneur, or you got to go over here. But they both can collaborate.
Yep.
You can go to school, get a degree, then come out here and use those skill sets and knowledge that you gain to advance yourself as a entrepreneur. And I think for us for me personally, sometimes it's an all or nothing mindset, right? So either I'm all the way in and all the way invested, or I give nothing at all. And kind of like making that initiation to start something. Sometimes I think for me personally, I want immediate gratification, right? I start a savings account or I start an investment. I want that $50 to turn into $50,000 in 1 week. That's not gonna happen, right?
If you find that investment, let me know.
Yeah. Please, please share that
And
information.
so I'm like, instead of me saying, okay, let me add another 50, well, that 50 ain't changed nowhere. Let me go over here and buy this watch I seen for 25. You know what I'm saying? Taking away from what I've already created and started. And I think it kind of goes back to what Carrie said. You really have to sit down and put that value into what it is that you're truly desiring. What is the outcome that we're wanting? For an attitude towards our own, can we be our own worst enemies? I think in a lot of ways we are, because we have been taught to really kind of pull ourselves up from our bootstraps and look at stuff in a mindset. But some of it is not always about just seeing ourselves win. I win when you win, right? Mm-hmm. And that's how we got to kind of look at prospects. And it's not for me, you winning and now I'm intimidated by your success. I think oftentimes we get jealous of, I ain't gonna say jealous, but I think we get...
No, you're right.
Jealous, and I guess envious.
Yeah,
and, in a way of other people's success because they did it differently, right? The first time somebody goes out and, you talked about going swimming. Well, the first person that joined the swim team that's black, they got mocked. You know what I'm saying? They got ridiculed. But at the same time, now when we see them at the Olympics, once they've gotten there, now we want our children to go to go. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, so why did we have to make such a hardship for them? Why couldn't we just have given them that support when they were trying to join in the swim team in middle school?
I ran cross country.
Yeah,
the first thing came out your mouth. We don't do that.
But when you were saying that about the jealousy thing, I think too, a lot of people, they want to see you win, but they want themselves to win.
Right.
I'm okay with everybody else winning, but I wouldn't mind me winning too. And so, but you have to check yourself. That goes back to that statement that you said before then. What is your overall outcome? What outcome do you really want? Is it more important for you to win at all costs above everybody else? Or is it important for you to accomplish a certain goal? And when we're talking about being our own worst enemy, I would rather just accomplish a goal of doing this, being able to do it, and kind of inspiring somebody, instead of having to be, I want to be number one. I definitely want to be number one in the state, number one in America, in whatever I do. But I'm okay with if I don't make it there, just that process of doing it, being happy that I'm doing, being relevant, being competent at actually what I'm doing. But I love that statement when you said you've got to know what your outcome is. If you know what your ultimate outcome is, now you can take the certain paths that you need to take to get there. You can set the goals to get there to that outcome. Then it's a
other things become a distraction.
Yeah,
because that's what it is. We easily are distracted by other things, right? And I can blame you for not being successful, right? I can blame you for the things that I do. But there are times when, I can remember, like, in my house, I never saw drugs. My mama didn't drink none of that, right? So I could go around people who were using drugs, smoking, or doing whatever, and I didn't do it because it wasn't what I wanted to do. Like, it didn't have value or purpose for me, and I had enough strong will to do that. I'm not saying everybody has that same strong will, but that just wasn't of value to me. So when we put our mind to things, it's amazing what we can accomplish, right? And so I actually tell people, like, and I had that conversation too, you know, like, even when I was working with kids, they used to be like, well, my son don't know how to do math, or they don't know how to do this. And I used to be like, but you just told me your son play Fortnite, right? You just told me they do these things. So when you first bought that PlayStation, they knew how to play? No, they didn't know how to play the game. How did they get better at it? They practiced. Anything we practice over time, we get better at. Right? So, of course, first starting out, we're not going to be the best at it. We're not going to be the best at our finances. We're probably not going to be the best at our relationships if we're starting out, if we're changing things. Over time, the practice and effort that we put in with it, we approve. And in that, you got to be willing to get uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. Because with knowledge and growth, there's no way for you to stay the same. You can stay true to yourself, stay true to the values and morals of what you have, but you cannot stay the same and grow. It's not possible.
I tell people all the time, you know, I ran into somebody, because I used to be really quiet, and, you know, they say, oh, I didn't even realize you were the same person, because I had cut my hair, I was very talkative and, you know, outgoing, and they were like, oh, you know, you changed. I was just like, bro, you ever seen a seed that's a tree? Like, I never seen them in the same place. Like, if you plant a seed and it grows, it's going to be whatever it's supposed to be if you nurture it. I said, I've been nurturing myself. And when I say myself, I don't worry about anybody else. I mean, I value you guys as human beings, but Carrie got to make sure she's straight before I can try to invest in anybody else, right? So I've been making sure I get around people like my circle that can water me, prune me when I need to be checked. Because I mean, it's both parts. You can't just be around people that hype you up all the time, because you can be hyping me up to go into a fight. I ain't gonna win. Like, I need somebody to tell me, whoa, that person's way bigger than you, Carrie. I need for you to back down, girl, back down. You know, you need to have that. And then going back to what you were saying earlier about those goals, one of the things that makes us our own worst enemies, we're not setting reasonable expectations. I'm just going to be real. Like, I love sports. I have always been athletic, but there are certain sports that I love to watch that I will never play. Basketball being one of them. I am 4'11", barely can break 120. I don't like looking like a dwarf when I'm real cut, which is why I'm not pursuing a sport like that. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. Like, I love to watch it, but your girl's not going to do that. But I did prosper in cross country. I was a long distance runner, and I ran the 800, the mile, and the 2 mile for track. That was it. Sometimes you have to be okay with, you might enjoy something, but it's also not for you. Be reasonable in your expectations for yourself. So then your expectations aren't, so you don't, I tell people, when you set unreasonable expectations, it's like climbing to the really tall ladder and jumping off and expecting you're gonna be okay.
Afterwards, right.
You gotta set reasonable expectations, so if you do have a little, it doesn't hurt so much. And we do it all the time, knowing full well I'm not going to pass a federal exam if I only gave myself a week to study when they say on average is 6 weeks. Like, but we do this. We're like, oh, I can do it. I'm like, be reasonable. You know, they say set smart, and I can't remember everything. The acronym, you know, smart expectation, specific, measurable, you know, whatever, reasonable and attainable, reasonable, and what was the T?
Time.
And with a time limit. So you want to do those smart goals. And so that's what I do. And then when something messes up, I go and say, okay, what part of this where I messed up, was it not specific enough so I could measure my progress? Did I not give myself enough time? Was it just unreasonable? That way I don't get discouraged, and I can just evaluate it and move on to the next and reset the goal. And I've had to do that with my business because, like, COVID affected how people were able to afford insurance. So I'm telling you, like, when I first jumped in, I opened my business during COVID, which was kind of crazy, but I did it because the opportunity was there. And the market that I work in, I really love that market because it's in my community. People look like me that are my customers. That was a first for me, so that was an adjustment. And but I went into an area, the specific area I am in Columbia is one of the lower income areas. So trying to pull that market in and wanting them to, get insurance products from me, it's hard, but I had to be okay because I had to be reasonable in my expectations from that market. And then knowing that, I have to be able to make adjustments and be adaptable. But a lot of times, we're so stuck on ourselves and how great we are as people, we don't want to adapt. We want the world to adapt to us. And I'm going to tell you what my grandma say. Is it easier for me to cook a meal and ask y'all what y'all want to eat, or just cook what I want to eat and expect y'all to eat it? I ain't gonna be in this kitchen all day and have food still on the stove. So, it just make more sense to kind of figure out what everybody want out here. And so I'm just like, okay, you know what? Let me ask my cousins, what do you not know? What do you need? So I do more, instead of just trying to push products, I push education. And that has made all the difference. Like, I tell people all the time, look, if you have to leave and come back, I got you. But keep my number handy. I keep that bridge available because that's a reasonable expectation for people. And they remember that. And that's important to me because I didn't get into this just to be that. I want to change the dynamic so we're not our own worst enemy. But somebody got to start it. And that's the other thing. We get stuck on, well, I should already had this access to something. Yeah, sometimes you got to be the first one and get out your own way and get out the way for the people you're trying to help and just be the first one to go educate yourself on something or be the first person. Like, it's okay to be the first person. And like you said, you're going to make mistakes.
You are. And I think it's important that you be and this is too, listening to you talk, I think it's important that we be inspired, knowing the difference between being inspired and trying to mimic somebody else's life, right? You can be inspired by your passion and your drive for, life insurance. But I can't come over here and duplicate what you're doing. Even if I have the same knowledge, even if I have the same degrees, I can't mimic you.
We can have the same recipe and not cook a totally different
and cook the two different. And that's the thing. But people are not okay with it. Like, we're in comparison. And it's like, I can't say that yours is good and mine is not good. No, yours can be good and yours can be even better. It just gives me inspiration to keep achieving so that I can make mine the perfect for me. You know what I'm saying? Because I always think about it, you ever go to people's household and you be like, it's good, but grandma's taste better. Well, you used to grandma's. That's what you used to taste. And so it is, that grandma's is the best to you.
Or they both really good, and then you like, dang, this is just as good as grandma. So it's okay. Two things can equally be good at the same time in two different places. I tell people all the time, you got Walmart and Target for a reason. They're both very useful. I'm not taking anything from either one.
Either one of them. And I was having this conversation with, I think it was with Taisha earlier. No, it was with another friend of mine. I don't know, we were talking about the Kanye documentary earlier. And I really, as I was watching him through these episodes, it was almost like people were mad at him for the belief that he had in himself.
Yes.
Y'all upset with him. And I know he got a lot of controversy going on right now. I'm not here talking about, that. I'm not going to get into all of that. But when we talk about the origin of him and we talk about where he originated from, people hated him because he believed in himself. Like, that was mind-blowing to them that and if we really go back to it, when he was doing these movies, he told us he would get to this point, right? He really said it in every episode. He told us he was going to be the number one rapper. He literally said it, and he believed it in his mind and in his heart, and he pursued it. And so now we mad at him. You know what I'm saying? They were mad at him then. Then he got to this space. Y'all, we still mad at him, but that's what he wanted to do. Like, that, the fact that he had so much self-respect for himself and what he believed in, people were mad because they want to know why. And I was like, there's a difference between confidence and arrogance, right? Mm-hmm. To me, people say he was arrogant, but I just feel like he sold out, believed in his dream.
Yeah, we're not used to that. As a society, we're just not used to it. We're not used to somebody saying, this is what I'm going to be. I am this now. Y'all going to see it later. Mm-hmm. But this is where I'm going to be at later. We're just not used to that. And then when you get that from someone, it's like, oh, they crazy. They arrogant. Mm-hmm. They narcissistic.
Connotations, yeah.
Oh, they ain't going to make it, just flat out. Like, you just ain't going to make
it. And he even said it in there. He was like, how can you be mad at me for being overconfident? What is overconfident? And, to some degree, he's right. And when I say to some degree, I'm taking your explanation of the basketball, right? You being 4'11", 120, whatever you said, and you knowing, okay, that's not the sport for me. So if you overconfident, you got a lot of making up to do to try to get to be this number one person. Now, is it possible? Maybe. I mean, if you really wanted it
Yeah.
that bad, and he really wanted to be the best rapper in the world that bad, he put all his sights and his emphasis on it. And let's not forget, he had his mom, who was an excellent support system. It wasn't just him. So anybody that you can gather to be on your side, and when we say, are we our own worst enemy, going back to one of y'all said it about your network, the people that you have around you, man. What is it? Is it Rich Dad, Poor Dad, where they talk about if you want to be rich, you need to be around rich people? I mean, that goes for anything.
He wanna be a good
Anything.
cook. He better be
Be
around
around
somebody
good
that cooks.
You know, I even
makes
say
sense.
in the church, you want to be a holy person, be around holy people, right? Like it goes. You want to exercise, you want to be healthy, you be around healthy people. Like it is what it is. Whatever you want to do, you surround yourself with those like-minded people. And when you are not, that's not to say that you won't ever be that, but you are going to lengthen that process. Because you got to fight through, and you've said this on several other episodes, you got to fight through whatever they're bringing to you, the negativity they're bringing to you, or the doubt that they're placing in you by their own questions. When you say, I want to do this, the questions is coming out of left field because they can't see what you see. They don't have the same aspirations that you have, man. It's amazing. Are we our own worst enemy? We can be. When we know that stuff, we know what to put into place to get to where we're going. And then I like what you said earlier about investing into yourself. You like us, but you got to invest into yourself. We have a tendency to compare ourselves sometimes, but are we comparing it in the right way? And I've said this before on another podcast. When you look at social media, that's somebody's highlight reel. Nobody's going to sit up there and say, I'm not feeling good. I wasn't feeling good. Today that we're recording on a Saturday. I wasn't feeling too good on Thursday. I ain't put that on social media. I mean, I wasn't feeling good at all. It just wasn't in me that day. But I ain't put that on there. My dad passed away around about this time, and I had to recognize that's why I'm feeling that way.
Right.
But I ain't go to social media and put that on there. I might go to social media today and when I'm having fun. But that's all you're going to see. You're going to see the good side. And then when we compare to the highlight reel, it makes it difficult, even more difficult to go through your tough times. Because it's like, why me? Why I got to be going through this? Why he get to have all the good moments? He don't. She don't. They got bad moments. They're just not putting it out there for everybody to see in all cases.
That's a big problem. So, when I made that comment about, I love everybody and everything, but I think the biggest transition for me was when I first started out, I was seeking out mentors to kind of mimic their behaviors to at least make sure I had the right steps in place. But once I had the steps in place, like I cut them off. Like you can talk to two of them now. I don't ever ask them questions because now I read for myself. Now that I know I had the process in place. And one of the things that I was doing was I wasn't comparing to be them. I was comparing for their standard operations. You see what I'm saying? Like sometimes we get around people to mimic them, like you said earlier, and that's dangerous. We need to get the good parts, the good habits. Like if I'm a personal trainer and I'm showing you all these different muscle groups and everything, and I'm showing you that, but then I'm eating dirty, I need you to focus on the exercises, but not the diet. And you have discernment for that. And when you get the principle of everything down, you can start working on you. If you work on you, if you have the fundamentals, I tell people all the time, like, you're trying to lay bricks for a home. If you lay one brick perfectly and you keep laying bricks perfectly, eventually you will have a home. But if you just so focused on throwing up a wall and you get sloppy, those fundamentals, even if you built the home, it's on shaky ground. So make sure you get the fundamentals down. And we get so caught up on our house being bigger than the other person's house and rushing to build it, we're not focusing on the fundamentals. And that's the part that I'm like, as I mature, I'm so focused on. Like, I know that even if no one else in my family exercises, I know I got to work on my health if I want to be here. I got to eat cleaner. So that's what I'm working on now. Like, I started this year. I tried to do, shout out to Walter Bennett. I couldn't do it, man. I tried to do that 30 days, that 100. I tried after week 2. I was like, this is too much for me.
Who was Walter Bennett?
He is like this fitness freak from church, and he shout out to you, but bro, you on your own. This time I had to start over in baby steps. But I know once I get the habit down and replace my bad habits of drinking sodas and all those crab legs and shrimp that I told you I can't eat. Once I get my cholesterol where it needs to be, once I get my body building to where it needs to be strengthened, the joints that have, I've just put through too much damage. And here's the other thing too. Going back to being reasonable, if we know we lack something and we've lacked it for a long time, 1 or 2 days of doing the good habits is not going to replace 10 years of bad habits. You have to give yourself time to compensate for what you were lacking, and then you're going to actually see growth. Like, you got to get out of the negative before you actually see growth, and you have to be okay with that. And there are a lot of things that I did starting out, and I was just like, I knew better, but I never had to do it in practice. So my muscles in those, figuratively, my muscles in those areas were actually weaker than I thought they were. Someone went to go lift, and I was just like, oh, I actually need to give myself time to grow in this area before I branch out into that. And until you can get strength in that area, that's when you have to ask for help. A lot of times we are our own worst enemy because we don't want to ask for help.
So, going back to y'all SMART goals, because y'all refer to them a lot. You got to be, I can't never say this word. Okay. She said it's specific. Measurable, achievable, attainable, relevant, responsible, reasonable, and then time bound or time limited. That's key too. When we talk about the time part of it, you can't just say, "Oh, I wanna be healthy one day." When's one day? I want to work out one day. When's that one day? Because you'll mess around and you just keep pushing it off. We were talking about boundaries earlier. When are you going to set those boundaries? Because you're going to be happy until you do that. Mm-hmm. And in the meantime, when are you going to try to start that new job, or when are you going to try to start that career or studying for that test? Because eventually that test's going to get here. And if you don't put a time limit on it, you're not going to be prepared for it. Did y'all want to add anything to what because we can keep going. But we're not. Carrie, how can they find you if they need you? How can they find you?
Well, I'm located in downtown Columbia. If you are in the Columbia area, it's at 1631 Richland Street, Columbia, South Carolina, 29201. You can call me at 803-908-4796, and you can email me at carrie@saxonagencyllc.com. That email is connected to my phone. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help. And again, I do all types of insurance products, but I also like to kind of help you go through your planning so we can actually not be our own worst enemies. Like if you know your credit's bad, and I had these educational packets I like to give out because the knowledge was free to me, so I'm gonna keep disseminating it. It just doesn't make any sense. All of it's connected. So if you're not taking care of your credit, you're not taking care to budget, you're not taking care, like how are you gonna alleviate another part of your life to afford the things that you want to have if you're not making a plan for it? And this is my thing. If you are planning to take a trip, you're going to have a map and some directions, right? Mm-hmm. So how the heck do we think we're going to make any kind of destination financially or mentally or spiritually or whatever, physically, if we don't have a roadmap to success for our life? So, this is where we start. You got to start and realize that you are your own worst enemy by not properly planning, not holding yourself accountable. I mean, it starts with you. People will treat you how you allow them. That's the first one, right? Mm-hmm. And then if you're disrespecting yourself by not setting plans, nobody owes you anything. Like if you're not going to hold yourself accountable, and I tell people all the time, we both grown, and you say you're hungry and you got access to the refrigerator just like I do, I'm gonna look at you like, there's a refrigerator. Right. I'm not gonna feed you. You're grown. So you have to fight for yourself, and and that's why I am in this industry and happy to help who I can. Like I tell people, I might not be able to be your insurance agent, but I could definitely be one of your biggest fans and help you get to where you want to be, because it takes a village.
All right. Subscribe to Speaking with Gravity on our social media websites. We got Facebook, we got Instagram. Yeah, that's it for right now. Your event needs, go to 61 Event Rentals. They got a 360 booth and red carpet. You got a resume you need updated. You need some direction on how to make that resume, or you need to be prepped for an interview. Holla at D. We're going to have our contact information in the show notes. Gravity Counseling Group, which I am a owner of, provides a BIPOC wellness group every fourth Monday, where we talk about, educate, validate, support each other about topics on healthy relationships, emotional intelligence, resilience, so on and so forth. And then shout out to Mr. Winston for holding us down on the audio and visual production. Check him out on winstonjstewart.com. He does our audio, he does our visuals. He's a phenomenal photographer. He's done my family portraits, and we got some coming up too that he's gonna have to do again. He did them 2 years ago, I think. So we got to get them in before they get too big. Yeah. Thank y'all for taking the time to listen. You could be doing anything right now, but you chose to listen to us or watch us on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed to us on YouTube, make sure you do it right now as I'm talking. And then remember that we are therapists, me and D. We're therapists. But this ain't therapy. It's a podcast. Thank you, Miss Carrie.
Just don't call me that girl from the crazy movie, because that's what everybody